Yo guys, what's good? So today, coming at you with a little bit of different content, we're going to talk about the cost of bodybuilding. Now, it's probably quite a bit more than you actually think. So when you sit down and break it down, we spend a lot of money on bodybuilding. It's an expensive sport, so it pays to take it quite seriously. So anyway, I'm going to break it down into, I've got 9 different sort of subcategories, and I'm going to talk about the different prices that we spend, or the money that we spend per month, and then break it down into per year. Now, obviously, it's going to be a bit of a generalized approach because I can't just tell you what I spend. There's obviously, different levels to this. So I'm going to try and give a bit of a generalized approach, and we'll go from there. But we'll put some rough numbers down, and we'll see where we get. All right. Anyway, number 1, food. So I spoke to a few friends of mine and had a few conversations with regards to food. It seems to be about a rough number, £300 to £500 per month. So I'm going to put that down on the board. £300 to £500 per month. Now, obviously, you can spend more, you can spend less. You could go and buy, the most expensive steaks, you could buy the most expensive, whatever it is, but there's always a nice mid-range. But also it's probably not best to just buy the poorest, lowest quality foods, because we want to have good amino acid profiles in our meat and things like that. So making sure we do get good levels of food is important. So £300 to £500 on food. Number 2, supplements. So I'll just put sups down here. I'm going to put a rough number around £200 per month. Now, obviously this got to cover your whey proteins, creatines, EAAs, omegas, other health supplements as well, things that are going to look after your heart, liver, all those kind of things, like your internal organs, especially for guys who are on cycle, which is obviously incredibly important. These things do add up, and it's not something that you can just put to the wayside and think, oh, I can't really afford that, I'm just going to leave that. If you're using gear, you absolutely have to be using these supplements as well. So I think £200 is actually being quite kind on that number as well, because you can easily spend a shit ton more than that. Number 3, gym membership. So I'm going to write this down. Gym, again, this is going to change dependent on the person, obviously where you go, what part of the country you're in. I'm going to put roughly say £30 to £80 a month, something like that. Some of you probably pay more, some of you probably pay a little bit less, but this is a rough guesstimate, and I think that's about right. Number 4, coach. Okay, so obviously for anybody looking to compete competitively, you're more than likely going to have a coach and someone that's going to guide you through the process with regards to your nutrition, your training, your drugs, all this kind of stuff. So coach, we're going to go with roughly 150 to about 300-ish pounds. Again, I know coaches who are more expensive than that. I know coaches who are less expensive than that. But 150 to 300 seems to be about an average going rate for most coaches nowadays. Again, where you go is dependent on the coach, on yourself, the client-coaching relationship. But this, again, we're just talking about cost here. So 150 to £300 per month for a coach. Number 5, therapeutics. So what I mean by this is massages, chiro, all that kind of stuff that's going to help you stay in good nick. Because at the end of the day, when we're pounding the weights, we're pushing our bodies to the absolute limits, we absolutely have to look after your body. And if you don't, you're just going to end up breaking down, and you're not going to end up getting on stage by the end of it. So I'll put this down. We'll put therapeutics, and we're going to go. So me personally, I have 4 sessions a month. So I have 2 massages, 1 every other week, and 2 chiros, 1 every other week at £50 each. So that's £200 a month. Another £200 a month there on therapeutics and looking after my physique. Number 6, blood work. Okay, so again, for the competitive bodybuilder, it's something that you cannot get by without doing this. It's absolutely imperative to make sure that, number 1, your health is on point, and number 2, your body's working correctly. Because if there's certain nuances and your blood work isn't on point, then your body's probably not going to be reactive, and you're probably not going to get in the best shape that you possibly can and do well on stage. So blood work is going down there. Bloods. My pen ran out, by the way, so that's why I've got a black pen now. Roughly 150 to £200 a pop, and you're doing that probably 3 to 4 times a year. Again, sometimes more, sometimes less. Probably should always keep it up, but we're going to say 150 to 200, say times 4 over the course of the year. Okay, so we'll work this out again in a minute, but that's blood work for now. Number 7, the one you've all been waiting for, drugs. PEDs, whatever you want to call them, okay? This is again going to be a large range because people's usage depends on their goals and what they're doing, but I'm going to put dependent on over a time scale as well, whether you're cruising, blasting, etc., what phase of your off-season or prep that you're in, probably somewhere between 50 to £300 or thereabouts. Again, Probably no one's going to be spending less than that. That's on the absolute lower level, but there will be people spending more than that if we're using lots of growth, things like that. Okay, so 7 PEDs, 50 to 300 pounds. Number 8, accessories. Okay, so you probably don't even think about this kind of thing because you just pick them up as you go throughout the year, but things like cuffs, daisy chains, bands, belts, bags, chalk, sniffing salts, all that kind of stuff. It's an accumulation of, you know, things that you spend over the course of the year, and we're going to go with about 300 pounds over the course of a year. Again, might spend more, might spend less, but as a rough estimate, 300 pounds for accessories. So that kind of concludes the cost of bodybuilding for somebody who is maybe not going to get on stage, or either they're prepping for let's say a photo shoot or something like that. Somebody that's doing all of the things that you would do if you're going to get on stage without the actual getting on stage. So we'll work out this cost in a moment, but I want to add one more, number 9, and that is competing itself and all of the different costs that go into competing. So I'm going to have to break this down into a number of different things, and I'm going to do this down the side here. So competing, we have a number of different things in competing. So I'll write them all down and then we can look at putting a price towards it as well. So guys, competing, here we have the subcategories in competing. I've put trunks, or essentially what you're going to wear on stage. Entrance fees, hotel and travel, and then obviously abroad hotel and travel and things like that as well. And of course, COVID, because at the moment it's pretty relevant. PCR tests, traveling, getting into countries, all this kind of stuff. It costs fucking money. Anyway, let's have a look at it. So trunks, we put around about 30 to 50 pounds. Not too bad. Again, obviously I'm doing this for a male bodybuilder. I know obviously females, you're going to spend quite a bit more than that on trunks. So, well, not trunks, bikinis. Anyway, entrance fee. So roughly, it's about 200 pounds per competition to compete at the level of trying to turn professional. Now, some of the regional shows are a little bit cheaper. This is for a pro qualifier level show. Some of the shows are a little bit more expensive, but around about 200 pounds per show is where we're at, okay? Hotel and travel in the UK, I've put around about 200 pounds. So let's put that here. 200 pounds, again, that's going to cover, your fuel, driving to wherever it is in the country. Your hotel for the night could be between 100, 150 pounds, 75 pounds, whatever it is. But all in all, about 200 pounds to travel, stay the night, and all those kind of things, around about 200 pounds. Now, what happens if we're competing abroad? Obviously, I competed abroad quite a few times last year, so it was an expensive year, let me tell you that. So you obviously got to take into consideration flights, accommodation, and like I said, the PCR test as well, but just for flights and accommodation, I've averaged it out at about 500 pounds. This is for kind of like a 4 to 5 day trip. So we put 500 pounds here. And don't forget, on top of that, you've got, your entrance fee as well, your trunks, and then obviously your COVID test, your PCR test as well. So this is between 50 to 150, 50 to 150 pounds for COVID test. PCR tests, obviously different countries cost different amounts of money. Some of them I spent 50 pounds on, some like 120 quid, like whatever it is. But that's about an average, some are like over 200 quid. But taking this all into consideration, when competing abroad, it is expensive. So looking at all of this and all of this, we're going to break it down now. We're going to look at like the monthly cost and the yearly cost of sort of all of this stuff without competing, and then we'll add the competitions on as well. So let's see what we get. So food, so this is roughly 50 plus, we'll say 225. That is, to be a bodybuilder, every month, it averages out at you spending £1,390 per month on food, supplements, gym memberships, coaches, massages and chiropractors, your blood work, your drugs, and your accessories. That's a lot of money when you break it down and look at it like that, isn't it? So now let's add on the competing side of things. So trunks, say 4 plus. So guys, I've just worked out with regards to competing. So roughly on average to do a UK show, you're probably looking at about £500. That's with regards to your entrance, your travel, the trunks, your hotel, all these kind of things in roughly about £500. Now, for a non-UK show, you're looking a little bit more on that, about £850, and this is being kind. This is really doing it, I think, on a bit of a, not on a budget, but you know, looking for cheap Airbnbs and things like that. So as you can see, you're already spending this every single month, 1,390, and then you've got to take into consideration every time you compete, you're probably looking at this sort of money here as well. So as you can see, guys, when I broke it down like that, bodybuilding is not a cheap sport, it's an expensive sport, so you've got to fucking love it. If you love it and you're passionate about it, then of course none of this stuff is a cost, it's an investment into your future, your health, and all these kind of things. Careful how I term the word health, but you know what I mean. So anyway, guys, hopefully you took something from that. Like I said, all of these numbers are subjective. You know, they're not set in stone. These are just rough numbers that I thought are pretty appropriate for the time being. So take from this what you will. But probably the biggest takeaway is that bodybuilding is expensive. So if you're going to do it, you're going to do it properly. Make sure that, you know, it costs a lot of money. So make sure you're not just spending all your money on bodybuilding and not spending your money on, you know, things like your family, your girlfriend and stuff like that. Obviously, I ain't gonna tell you how to spend your money, but having a good balance in the way in which you do spend it is probably a good idea. Anyway, I'm gonna leave you guys there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. See you in the next one. Cheers.